It is your Monday daily delivery. Patrick Reusse here with me. I am Michael Rand. Patrick, plenty to get to, as often there is this time of year. I think we got to start with the Vikings. We'll get to some Gopher football and that disappointment down in Iowa. Get some Gopher basketball, maybe a little Timberwolves, who enjoyed a brief glimpse of success over the weekend before reverting back to the way they've been playing mostly lately. But yeah, so much going on, Patrick. Let's start Vikings though, because we've been yelling at them for weeks now because they've been bad. That was probably the best game they've played this year, at least. Right up there with Seattle in terms of, the completeness of it. Beat the Chargers 27-20. Get aggressive on offense in the fourth quarter in particular, and that seems to be the difference in the game to me. I don't know about you.
Well, I really was impressed with them defensively too, considering that the number, the guys that aren't playing, they're out there with about four of their regulars not playing, and they did a really good job tying up the Chargers. They made Herbert, the young quarterback, not look very good at all, and they really made life miserable for him, and he's kind of flattened out. Actually, this Chargers team has been very up and down, and they made him look down yesterday, and that to me was certainly as important as their aggressive approach to offense. But I think it also helped that you're facing the team that was 32nd in the league against the rush. So, if you start gouging them a little with the run, they certainly are going to have your opportunities to throw it. But there was no doubt that there was a come to Daddy Gary meeting and said, you got this guy Jefferson, and you got to throw the ball somewhere near him and let him try to catch it. And that's what he did yesterday. So, yeah, I'll tell you what, it was a surprise to me because how well I played, because I thought after that loss last week, I think I actually said this, you're just kind of expecting them to say, oh, come on, man. We've been pounding our head on the wall. The hell with it. Let's go out to LA and get whopped and get back on the plane. And they did not. They showed up and played, and Zim had the this team plays with fire stuff. Zim is saying a lot of things trying to save his job, and one of those last week was this team plays with fire. They always come back, and he was right. They did, and there was really nothing to complain about. They look pretty good. Now they get the Packers coming to town, and the Packers look very Packers defense is playing great. They look very mediocre offensively against a bad Seattle defense last night. It was 3-0 late in the third period.
Yes.
If the Packers aren't going to find their stride, here's what's been amazing about the Vikings, though, Mike, and we've made several references to this. They've played way better on the road than at home. They've really had their most pathetic performances at home, and they have played. This was not the first time they played aggressive. They played aggressive when they took Arizona down to the wire on the road. They've been a little more aggressive on the road than they have at home. So we'll see if it carries over. See what the paranoia level is with Zim and Kubiak, if they get in a slugfest. We'll see how they do that. But yeah, there's nothing to complain about. They were very good, everywhere yesterday, and that was a unexpected performance. And there had to be 15,000 Minnesota fans there, maybe 20. Now, that a lot of those are LA transplants, obviously. It's not everybody getting on a plane. We got a lot of people that live out there who used to live here. But it was, when something good happened, it was hard to tell which was the home team. So it was pretty amazing.
Well, I know a couple people at least that did the, was it Wild against Vegas? I think was Thursday, maybe Thursday or Friday, and then did That was out in Vegas, and then did Wolves, Lakers, Wolves, Clippers, and then Vikings, Chargers. Did the whole
Wow.
the whole 4 game gamut, over a 4 game stretch, and then came home. And I think they took the guys I know in particular took the red eye home last night, and
Ooh.
did the whole thing.
Glad,
That's a young
I'm,
man's flight, by the way. I'm
I'm
not
glad
taking any
I
more
wasn't
red eyes.
glad I wasn't sitting next to them. I'm glad I wasn't on that red eye with Viking fans last night. Nothing worse than flying with a plane full of drunks. There's a very good possibility that was the case. Although I have to say, I took that red eye out of LAX here lots and lots of times. I love that flight. That's the great thing about California. Even if it's a night game, you can still make the red eye. So it was like 1 a.m. at LAX. It was a great flight, and I'm sure it was full of Viking fans yesterday.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
I'm sure it was. Well, like you said, the defense.
If you're really full of alcohol, does that prevent passing COVID on to your teammates? Does that kill COVID?
I think so. You can't get it if you're underwater too. I've heard.
Being drunk for 4 days, does that prevent?
Kills brain cells. I don't know if it kills COVID.
Okay, but yeah, it was a night. And you know what? I've said it all along. Even if they lose yesterday, the schedule gets easy after the Packers, and if you go 9-8, you could be the 7th seed. And it's going to be hard to be 10-7, but there's 7. People keep forgetting there's an extra regular season game, and there's an extra spot in the playoffs. And that is I used this I guess in a tweet the other day that Yogi used to say it's getting late early, but this year it's late. It's getting late. You got to really be buried to not have a chance in the NFL. And so, yeah, they look good. They look good. Cousins look good. Everybody looked good. Good protection. He was. That's the whole deal with him. He can be aggressive or not. If he's not getting hit, if he's not feeling pressure, he's going to play good. And that's what happened yesterday. There wasn't much pressure.
No, it was.
Is it Bosa playing, or he doesn't play, or is he non-factor now, or what?
He played. I didn't see him a whole lot. I think he had something. He might have got some pressure early. I feel like he might have got a sack early in the game or something like that. But yeah, you didn't really see him as much as you would have thought. And you're right. The line was able to hold up and give him a decent amount of time when he needed it. And you alluded to it at the beginning too. The last time the Vikings proclaimed they were going to get the ball to a guy more often, we wound up with the Randy ratio. But Jefferson had 11 targets. He had 9 catches. I mean, to a certain degree, there's just an element of you got to get the ball to the guys who make plays, and that was part of the aggressiveness that I liked in the fourth quarter. Right? They got the ball to Jefferson on that 3rd down play to keep possession, and then they get to like 3rd and 19, and they don't just fold it up. They get a long completion to Thielen, and then they go for it on 4th and 2. They're just like, Here's our best play. It's our toss play to the right, to the strong side of the field, and we're gonna see if we can make 2 yards. And they made 3.
Yep, yeah, that was true. They get a lot of credit, but I thought that Jefferson catch pretty much won the game when they were. He made a hellacious catch down there on the sideline. And then another time they had him stopped, but then they showed the replay, and that's when they called the pass interference on the kid. The kid reached out and grabbed him. So not only does he make 9 catches, but some guy has to grab him by the jersey to prevent him from making another one. And that kept that earlier drive going too. And when it looked like the Chargers might be getting a little momentum going on their side, they had a nice drive there too. So yeah, they played good. It was nothing to complain about. We, as I said on Twitter, we're all alone in second place in the NFC North, baby.
Go get it.
And 2 left with the Bears and 1 left with the Lions. That's 3. I don't care what people think about their past performances at Soldier Field. You can't lose to this Bears team, and you sure as hell can't lose to the Lions. So they got, if they beat Packers Sunday, they're better than they're 60-40 to make the playoffs then.
You see the Lions? See the Lions tied yesterday?
Yes,
that's hilarious. It's like we kept saying, they could go 0-17. They could break their old record, and now it's even better. They could go 0-16-1. Like that's even worse. It seems like to me.
Yes, and Pittsburgh was going to. Roethlisberger didn't. Mason Rudolph was on the field, and he completed a pass. They took one of these little safety passes to set up the field goal, and the guy fumbled it. And the glorious Lions recovered it and got their tie. I saw at the end of the game. So
yes, they didn't lose.
No, you know what? That guy's a moron. Okay, Dan Campbell, one of these crazy guys. But the fact that they showed up, now 2 weeks ago they just laid down and got hammered, right? But they've been showing up most weeks. They're at least trying still, I guess. But I don't know. It is, as the great Sid Hartman often said, a crazy league, and that's been the case again. Well, 2 weeks ago it was insane, and but again yesterday there was some stuff going on. All of a sudden, the best team in the league, Arizona, they don't have Kyler Murray. They look like Hamlin. They're terrible. They're terrible, and nobody. It would have been really tough to host a post-game show like we do on some of the radio outlets in town yesterday. Too much positivity, because
I know
when those things are fun, when I make sure I'm in the car that I'm listening to them, it's when they lose and the drunks start calling in and complaining. Nothing to complain about yesterday. So.
No, although switching gears, if you had some complaints over the weekend, if you wanted to complain over the weekend, you had some options. Gopher football loses down in Iowa. No shame in, generally losing down in Iowa. It's not a bad Iowa team. They're obviously, tied for still the Big Ten West lead at 5-2. They were ranked as high as number 2 in the country this season at one point, but just watching the game, a very beatable Iowa team. If you're not going to do it now, if you're not going to win the Big Ten West this year, when are you going to do it? And here's a theory for you, Patrick. Very different. PJ Fleck and Mike Zimmer, obviously very different guys, very different in their approach. Off the field, on the field, on game day, they are very similar coaches. They are they kind of want to win a certain way, and I think Zimmer's departure from that on Sunday helped the Vikings win. And I think Fleck's insistence on, taking some short field goals and, not really, putting the foot down when they could kind of cost him in that game. But I want to hear your thoughts on that one too.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange transformation that he's made too. I mean, I remember, I guess I only watched Western Michigan play once, but it was against Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl, was it, or whatever the heck it was, and they were trying to do things, man. They were throwing it all over, and they had that Corey Davis, and they were kind of an aggressive team. And I don't recall him in his first couple of years just saying, we're not going to we're going to take the safe way out here. I think the better the team has gotten, the personnel, the more conservative he's been. And it does scream that they don't have faith in their quarterback, doesn't it? It does, doesn't it? That they don't want him to throw the ball. So they're down to their 5th running back, and they'd still rather run the ball and trust him to throw it to Ottman Bell, who was pretty dang good. So, yeah, it's a weird deal. And that that was a hard game to lose, man. You had 407 yards to 277, 409 to 277. You had the ball twice as often, 40, 20 minutes. You had 23 first downs to 12, and you somehow get beat. It was, and if Iowa hadn't been such morons, you would have gotten beat worse. They're on the 3-yard line after you turn it over on downs on the 3. And they do some goofy stuff. Why don't they just run it in the end zone? It's Iowa did some stupid things to give them that last chance too. But this Iowa team was obviously grotesquely overrated, and for the last month has been brutal. I don't think there's any guarantee they win at Illinois. Do you? Or I guess they get Illinois at home. So, and then they're at Nebraska, I believe. But they if they win it, if they beat Illinois, the Gophers are done. But that's a very mediocre team. Iowa, they had trouble beating Northwestern the previous week, and there's no excuse for losing that game, none at all. But did he say it's all about? Did he take full responsibility, or didn't he bother to do that this time? Took some shots at their inability to make plays, right? He kind of took some sideways shots at Morgan, didn't he?
Yeah, and we probably should. I mean, we've been talking about this for Morgan was great in 2019. I mean, he had a lot of help too. Tyler Johnson and Rashad Bateman certainly helped that out, and those guys are gone. But he's regressed it's weird. Like, Gopher quarterbacks have tended to, it's kind of the Adam Weber thing happening all over again, where he had one really good year early in his career, and then things kind of got progressively backsliding. And some of it's the coordinator, some of it's, the personnel around him. But yeah, I mean, you thought coming into the year that if you could think about Morgan more as the 2019 version and not the 2020 version, the quarterback should be a strength of this team, and it just hasn't been. It's that's got to be the most frustrating thing for them, is that they have a guy who's got experience, who's had a good year before, and he just isn't getting it done this year.
Well, what drives me crazy is people want to blame Sanford. He's calling the game. PJ Fleck wants to call. PJ Fleck considers himself an offensive coach. That's his background. And the offensive coordinator is doing what Fleck wants him to do. Maybe they should, in this offseason, go get Soroka again, right? He got fired at Penn State. And I think he kind of has the influence when he was here of being kind of a crustier, older coach who would do what he wanted to do, and PJ would not drive him nuts. Like, I think PJ would have the same amount of influence on Simon if he got the job as he's got on this guy Sanford. This is PJ Fleck's offense. This is not somebody else's offense. They're doing what he wants them to do.
You were doing some math before the show. Basically, if somehow the Gophers, the Badgers, Purdue, and Iowa wound up in a four-way tie, was it, or three-way tie?
Three-way tie. I don't have Purdue in it. I didn't look at four-way. I don't think that's going to happen. But
the three-way, the Gophers are kind of out of it, right?
Purdue. Wisconsin. If you all end up 1-1 against each other, which it would take for the Gophers to be in it, they'd have to beat Wisconsin. Then it's the first tie is division record, and two of Wisconsin's losses are to the east. So and the Gophers have already have two losses. The Wisconsin, if they beat mighty Northwestern on Saturday, cannot have more than one loss within the division, so they would win a three-way tie, I believe. So, because if Iowa loses another one, it will be within the division, and they already lost to Wisconsin. So, if it gets to that third tiebreaker, yes, it would be Wisconsin would win it, even if the Gophers beat them, Wisconsin would still win it. If it was a three-way tie, I guess the only way for the Gophers to win it now is for Iowa to lose to both Illinois and Nebraska, which is possible with this offense, but it's a long shot, obviously. But what they don't want to do is lose to lowly Indiana, because then you're 6-6 and you're going back to Detroit for a bowl game, right?
Yes.
You lose to Wisconsin and you lose your last two, you're 6-6, and you're back where you were when you started, basically.
Yeah, especially when you had this offensive line this year. You had, the start they had of the season, it's kind of like, I think Chip's written this various points, Chip Scoggins this year, just, if not now, when? You've got all this, experience, especially on the offensive line. You don't get those kinds of seasons and opportunities that often. And yes, they've had the injuries at running back that have certainly impacted their season, but at a certain point you got to make some more plays, and they just, in the biggest games, they just haven't this year.
Look at next year's schedule. If not, when could be next year? The first 8 next year are going to be damn near impossible to lose one. So we'll get all fired up again next year. But yes, as far as senior, veteran players who have been pretty good for you, you'll never have another year like this. I mean, the offensive line, when fully healthy, averaged 1 year younger than the Vikings offensive line. They, yes. It's basically the same age as the Vikings offensive line, this collection. They've been very erratic too. I mean, they stunk against Illinois, and then they turned around and they played good Saturday. Iowa didn't have that much pressure on anybody, and they ran the ball for 150 yards again, 160 yards or something. So, yeah. I mean, sure, this was a big chance for him. He's got to be shocked that they're with those 2 losses that they have sitting on their record. And by the way, once again affecting our national rating, Bowling Green got beat 49-17 by Toledo. They've only won once since the mighty win over the Gophers. Where their coach told our Gophers, patted our Gophers on the helmets and said, well, you'll be good. You'll still be a good team. That guy that beat Fleck became the first FCS coach to get ejected for the 2 unsportsmanlike calls.
Oh, no.
Came in 5 years ago. So, yes, but he lost. BJ lost. I don't know. The guy, it's never going to change. He drives me nuts. And I had said, I was forced into saying this the other day, I think he's been an asset to the Gopher football program. He's just been an asset. Okay. He hasn't been a liability. But this notion that this is the greatest football coach we've had since Murray Warmath is a bunch of nonsense. Mason stuck around here 10 years, and he had a 4 or 5 year stretch in the middle where they were pretty damn good. And everything you look at with them now has to have an asterisk because of the Big Ten West and the schedules they play. And they are playing this year. They're playing probably, I mean, they got Ohio State, but they're probably playing the easiest Big Ten schedule and Gopher teams ever played. So anyway, that's that on him.
Let's stick with the Gophers. I want to talk hoops for a little bit. Gophers and Wolves. Continuing our good news, bad news trend on the show. Gopher basketball. They're 3-0. They have 3 more wins at this point in the season than I thought they would have. You and I were joking before we came on here. Ben Johnson coaching these guys like Tom Thibodeau.
Where are the minutes police? Where are the minutes police? They were on the minutes police who had to worry about Cat. Aren't you worried about Eric Curry?
These are just college kids. These are college kids. They're fine. 4 of them played more than 44 minutes yesterday, though, against Princeton. That was a double overtime game. So Eric
Curry's played more minutes already this season than all his other seasons can go by when we waited for him. He plays. You said an 8th guy got off the bench for 2 minutes yesterday. In the first 2 games, he'd only played 7 guys. And, it's just the opposite of what I expected, because they brought in this mismatched collection of guys from all over. And I expected he'd be running 11 or 12 players out there trying to find out who he had. And I guess he made up his mind early because he is, he is playing the same guys. And, I can't say that I was shocked that they beat Kansas City, Mike. I don't think that should surprise us at all. But Western Kentucky was supposed to be fairly good. They're tall, and they beat them pretty bad. And then yesterday it was a battle with Princeton, which didn't exactly have a great collection of athletes on. So 3-0. Yeah, I thought they'd probably lose one of those three, but they're a little better. They're, you know what they are? They're fairly well coached.
Yes.
Their ball movement's pretty good, and they have an idea what they want to do offensively, which is let Battle and Willis do anything they want to do as far as getting shots up. But they move the ball, and they're fairly good at making open shots, and they play defense. They do it now. Yesterday they gave up quite a few easy bucket layups, but they play defense, so they might not be as the over and under. I put the over and under on them winning Big Ten games at 2.5.
Yeah,
but they might hit the over. They might be 4-60, something like that. But when they get in against some athletes, Peyton Willis isn't just going to be faking left, going right, and dribbling in and shooting 5 layups in overtime. That's not going to happen against a real team. So it's fun. What the heck? They're this mismatched collection of guys that they brought in from William and Mary and Lafayette and very other unimpressive places. They played pretty good. You know what? They coached them for a month to get them ready to play basketball this year, because taking all these collections, all these guys who never played with each other, and make them look like a fairly organized team, that couldn't have been easy.
No, I agree with that. And by the way, too, I did say it's okay if they run these guys ragged because they're college kids, but Eric Curry is 3 years older than Anthony Edwards. So
he was Willie. He said, "I'm sick of the injuries. I want to be a grad assistant." And then they fired. Was that going to be with Patino, or was that when was the announcement made? Right.
I can't remember. I can't exactly remember.
Got that job, but he was going to be a grad assistant, and finally Ben Johnson came to him and said, "I got a better idea. I want you to be my starting center."
Yeah, why don't you play 33 minutes against Princeton on the third game of the year?
Yes, that's right. He is getting him off the court a little more than some of the other. Battle and Willis, I think they both played 40 against Western Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. One of them played 40, and I think the other played 39 against Western Kentucky.
Battle played 48 yesterday, so
yeah. Those two guys are having the time of their lives. So they can each take 20 shots. They could just, they battle has that. It requires no conscience for Battle. He feels like throwing up a shot, he can. And but they actually kind of semi-posted him up a few times yesterday and got him some layups, because mostly he'd been shooting jumpers before that. So yeah, I watched quite a bit of them. It was kind of fascinating. They had a terrible stretch at the end of regulation. They let Princeton come back from 10 down and get into overtime. But then they made 3-0. What the heck? He seems like a nice enough fellow, Ben Johnson, and maybe there's a few more wins in their portfolio this year.
Let's finish with the Wolves, although I want to get you a parting word from Bethel St. John's too, because it sounds like that was quite a game. Wolves experienced a modicum of success at the Lakers the other day. They get all excited about themselves, and they get absolutely smoked by the Clippers the next night. They're 4-8 now, a 1-3 road trip. Probably good they got that one at least, but whatever good vibes were there after that 3-1 start have gone completely away.
The last 8 minutes of the third period against the Lakers, I tweeted out, "This is one of the greatest NBA teams I have ever seen for 8 minutes." They were fantastic.
Right.
Fantastic. They had the Lakers throwing the ball all over the arena. They were making every shot possible. Cat was a madman. He was making threes. He was driving to the basket. He was blocking shots. It was phenomenal. Russell wasn't even being an idiot. It was pretty good. And then they show up, and I was doing other stuff, and I didn't watch the first. By the time I went to watch the Clippers game, they were 25 down, and I said, "They're back. They're back."
They're back, baby.
Maybe it was the long trip that they had to take, that long road trip from the back to their hotel and then back to the same arena. How do you do that? How do you play? I mean, it's not like they've had a bunch of back-to-backs, right?
No, because they're the Timberwolves. They're just.
They sit down in the fourth quarter, most of them, for garbage. They turned a Laker game into garbage time the last 6-7 minutes. So they're sitting there laughing on the bench, and then they show up the next day against the mediocre Clippers and get humiliated. The Clippers, when they first played the Timberwolves, were 1-6, right? I think they were 1-6 for the season. Now they're 3-0 against the Timberwolves. Unbelievable. I don't know. This coach has been around a long time. Finch has got to go home to the hotel room, and after he's done seeing his team, just go ahead and pound his head on the bathroom mirror or something and say, what is this? What is the mentality that allows you to think, boy, we're good now that we won one game against the old Lakers team? They're phenomenal. They're just if I was fully invested in them if I was one of the 75 fans in the Twin Cities that's fully invested in the Timberwolves, that's their number one thing, they would drive me insane.
Wolves Twitter is a dark place sometimes, and it's gotten that way. It's gotten that way lately. Although, so now the schedule, they play the Suns today. But then, that's back here, and they get the Kings, the Spurs, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans after that. So, if you're looking for, an inflection point in the season, when they could perhaps play better, although they've already blown that chance early in the year with the soft schedule. The two of their 4 wins are over Houston and the Pelicans. So
7-8 at home. They get to play the Pelicans. They've already lost once to the Pelicans, which is dang
and Orlando,
and dang near impossible. And it's there's just too much going on in this town right now for people to worry about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's other things to gripe about. That's a good point.
Wild. One thing about the Wild, they're 10-4 now or something.
Yes.
Pretty phenomenal. But the other night in Vegas, they had 2 5-on-3s. One of them was like damn near the whole 2 minutes, and they didn't score a goal. How do you do that? They had 2 5-on-3s, for 3.5, 4 minutes. Come on, that's impossible not to score a goal. That was a bad loss right there. That's their but they're obviously pretty good. Sid's grandson, Ryan Hartman's tearing it up, man. That guy was a guy out of nowhere. He learned all hockey from Grandpa Sid, I think, didn't he?
I think so. Sid sure showed up in St. Paul a lot, didn't he?
Yeah, right. No, listen, they're going to move back to Minneapolis in 3 years. People aren't going to drive all the way over to St. Paul to watch it. Not going to East Berlin to watch hockey.
Let's finish with you saw St. John's and Bethel Division III. That sounded like it was a pretty good game.
Oh, fantastic! Because Bethel was much the better the first half, and then they blocked a punt for a touchdown late in the third quarter to go up 2 touchdowns, and then they stopped them 4 and out down in their St. John's was down on their own 30, and they stopped them 4 and out. And there's somehow they managed to get St. John's used all his timeouts, but they were down on their own 30. The snow was blowing, the wind was blowing in their faces, and they're gonna have to give up the ball. And all of a sudden, they hit like a 40-yard pass and then a 20-yard run, and they're down on the 5-yard line. It was extremely weird. And then the Johnnies score with 1 second to go. And the reason they won the game, Mike, was after their first touchdown, their long snapper got hurt. After the first touchdown, they the snapper that they had rolled the ball back, and the holder picked it up and ran it to the pylon for a 2-point conversion. So it was a failed extra point that then gave them a failed opportunity to kick that gave them a 2-point conversion. So they end up winning at 29-28. But then Bethel turns around and gets invited to the tournament, to the playoffs. So good for them, because Bethel's just as good as St. John's, and probably better because they have their quarterback's going to be the league MVP, this Rosny kid. And St. John's starting quarterback got hurt in game 7. So Bethel made the tournament, which was good. But it was a hell of a game. But I was up there years ago, nine years ago, when they beat Concordia, when Concordia was good, and one of the great steals of all time by the officials. The game was over. Concordia sacked the guy. It was over. It was 14-7, and some idiot referee called Concordia for having a player on the field who was celebrating while the ball was still rolling around on the ground after the sack. So they called him for coming out. They gave Bethel one more play. They scored a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, won the game 15-14. Wow. Terry Horan's a Concordia coach, and I've always, every time I talk to him, I say, "You got over that one yet?" And so yesterday is Saturday. I texted him like 6:00 at night and said, "The football gods finally caught up with Bethel's Steve Johnson." And about half hour later, he got killed on Saturday at Gustavus. So, but about half hour later, he said, "It's about time."
Oh, good.
But anyway, they're both in the field, and Bethel's good. So, and St. John's is St. John's, man. They just pull out wins, just amazing fashion. But they had, 5,000-6,000 people up there, and a third of them were Johnny's fans. They support that bunch. So it was a crazy. It was a crazy football game. It was a fun game, and the last quarter pretty much in the snow too. So it was a good game.
Oh, that's good. That's got to be the biggest rival now, right? That's got to be the big game with St. Thomas out.
Yeah, and now they come up with this idiotic division system because they're trying to protect the bottom teams from getting beat quite as often. So they came up with the division system, and this is how people always complain that the Big Ten is run by Michigan and Ohio State and all the big schools. MIC, opposite. The worse you are, the more power you have. If you're completely sucking wind down at the bottom, you get all the power. So they came up with this system, and so if St. John's and Bethel end up playing twice, and that the way they have it set up now, if it stays this way, that's probably going to happen every year. And so it's kind of stupid. But you have a 10-team league. You would think that the way to play it would have everybody play each other once and have one non-conference game, and everything's got the bottom feeders didn't want to. They wanted to avoid at least one butt kicking every year, so they came up with this schedule. So I mean, with this system, which is moronic, but what the heck?
Moronic, but what the heck? That is Minnesota sports in a nutshell.
All right. Hey, go Vikings. It was, there's hope. There's hope.
There's hope. Packers week, baby. Well, I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about next Monday. Good stuff, Patrick. We'll talk to you again, okay?
All right, Michael.